AITA for not inviting my brother to my wedding because of his joke that went too far. So, this is a long one, and I'll try to explain everything clearly. I, 28F, am getting married next summer to my fiancée, Sam, 30M. Sam and I have been together for about 5 years, and things have been amazing overall. We both wanted a small, intimate wedding, mostly immediate family and a few close friends. My family is small, just my parents and my brother, Jake, 32M. Sam's family is bigger, but super chill, so we anticipated only having around 40 people. The problem is Jake. He's always been the funny sibling, and I mean that in quotes because his sense of humor is questionable. Growing up, it was always little jokes at other people's expense, nothing truly malicious, but enough to make family gatherings tense. In the last few years, it's escalated. He posts jokes on social media that are sometimes borderline offensive and has a history of making pranks that aren't really funny to anyone except him. A few months ago, Sam and I got engaged. We called my parents first, and they were thrilled. Then came the inevitable conversation with Jake. I should note that I've been very clear with Jake in the past about boundaries, but he tends to ignore them. When I called him to tell him, his first reaction was excitement. Then he said, "So, is this the time you finally let me make the speech that will go viral?" I laughed it off at the time, thinking he meant a funny, harmless toast. Fast forward to a week ago. Sam and I were discussing the guest list, and I realized that the reality of having Jake at the wedding was stressful. The last time he gave a speech at a family event, he ended up making a joke that embarrassed our cousin for hours, and honestly, Sam is not the kind of person who enjoys being the butt of someone else's humor. I started thinking more seriously about how to handle him at the wedding. Then 2 days ago it happened. Jake came over to celebrate my engagement with my parents and me. At some point, he got this look on his face and said, "I've been thinking about your wedding. If you let me do the speech, I could totally roast Sam. He's the perfect target. I could bring the house down." Everyone laughed nervously. My parents tried to change the subject, but he kept going, saying things like, "Don't you want people to remember your wedding for decades? I'm the only one who can make that happen." I was honestly shocked. It wasn't even a subtle joke at that point. He was implying he would humiliate Sam in front of our friends and family for the sake of fun. I told him directly, "Jake, that's not funny. This isn't a stage for you to perform your jokes at our expense. We want the wedding to be about us, not your comedy show." He laughed it off, saying I was too sensitive, and left. After he left, I had a long discussion with Sam. We both agreed that we didn't want Jake at the wedding at all. My parents were surprised, but supportive. Sam said that having someone there who might publicly embarrass him would ruin the day, and honestly, I agreed. We sent Jake a message explaining that, due to his tendency to cross boundaries and make jokes at other people's expense, we didn't think it would be appropriate for him to attend. That's when things blew up. Jake texted back saying that we were overreacting and being dramatic, and that this was a huge betrayal. He said that not inviting him was an attack on our family, and accused me of being controlling and petty. He even went so far as to post a cryptic story on social media about some people valuing a wedding over family, which I assume is about us, though he didn't tag anyone. My parents are on our side, but my extended family is split. My aunt thinks I'm overreacting and that Jake would have behaved himself, while my cousin, who was there when he made that last toast, agrees with me completely and says Jake's funny. Jokes are always humiliating to someone. I've been feeling guilty about it, but honestly, I can't imagine Sam or myself enjoying the day if we had to worry about what Jake would do. I've considered letting him come, but not allow him to speak, but I feel like he would still find a way to make a scene, either in the ceremony or at the reception. Now, Jake isn't speaking to me or my parents, and has apparently been messaging mutual friends trying to convince them that we are horrible siblings for excluding him. Some of our friends are telling me I might be overreacting and that weddings are supposed to bring family together, but I just can't shake the feeling that this is about protecting our day and our relationship. So Reddit, AITA for not inviting my brother to my wedding because he has a history of making humiliating jokes and specifically made it clear he intended to do so at my wedding. This story is 6,832 characters, including spaces, fitting within your requested range, and keeping the style of popular Reddit AITA posts. If you want, I can write another completely different AITA story that's even more dramatic and shocking, but still realistic, to mimic the ones that go viral. Do you want me to do that next? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to host my brother and his fiancée after they demanded it, and then called me selfish and uncaring. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Michael, 29M, and he's always been a bit impulsive and dramatic. I've generally been the responsible sibling, steady job, reliable, financially stable, while Michael tends to make sudden decisions and expects others to adjust to him. I love him, but he can be exhausting to deal with sometimes. A couple of months ago, Michael called me in a panic. He and his fiancée, Sarah, 28F, had an issue with their apartment. Some unexpected repairs left them without a place to stay temporarily. Without asking first if it was okay, Michael said they would move into my apartment until they figured things out. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment and work full-time, and while I technically had the space, I was not comfortable having them live with me for an indefinite period. I explained this and offered alternatives, helping them find a short-term Airbnb, assisting with moving, or even helping cover part of a hotel if necessary. Michael immediately got defensive. He said I was being selfish, uncaring, and that family should help each other when in a tough spot. He implied that since I had a stable job and apartment, it was my responsibility to let them stay. I tried to explain that support doesn't always mean giving up personal space or comfort, and that helping them in other ways was still meaningful. He didn't accept it. Then Sarah called me directly. She was upset and said I was being cold and unhelpful, insisting that temporary housing in my apartment was the only sensible solution. She said other people in the family would understand, and that I was being unreasonable. I repeated my offer to help in non-residential ways, helping them pack, arranging logistics, assisting with finding temporary accommodation. She refused to consider any alternatives. Over the next few days, the pressure escalated. I received daily texts and messages from Michael and Sarah, each framing my refusal as a moral failing. They said things like, "I can't believe you'd let families suffer when you could help," and "You clearly don't care about us." Some mutual friends reached out, asking if I was overreacting or if I should just give in to avoid conflict. I explained my position, and most said I was justified, but the constant guilt tripping was overwhelming. A week later, they showed up at my apartment unannounced. It was clear they assumed I would change my mind. I told them firmly that the answer was no and that showing up without notice was inappropriate. Sarah started crying and yelling, accusing me of ruining their lives and calling me selfish and uncaring. Michael stayed quiet but looked visibly uncomfortable. I then offered one final compromise. I would help them pack, drive their belongings to a short-term rental, and even contribute a reasonable amount toward the cost if needed, but I would not allow them to live in my apartment. They both refused, claiming that any solution that didn't involve them moving and was not enough, and that I was putting my comfort over family loyalty. Since then, our relationship has become strained. Michael barely talks to me, and Sarah continues posting vague social media messages about family who won't help when it matters. Some relatives have subtly pressured me to be more accommodating, while others support my boundaries. Mutual friends are divided. Some say I should have let them stay to avoid conflict. Others say I'm right to protect my personal space. I feel torn. On one hand, I genuinely want to support my brother and his fiancée, but I also need to protect my home, routines, and mental health. I've offered numerous ways to help that don't involve giving up my space, but they refuse anything that isn't exactly what they want. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent where they could make unreasonable demands whenever convenient. Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my brother and his fiancée after they demanded it, and then called me selfish and uncaring. I want to support them, but I also need to maintain boundaries, protect my home, and preserve my mental well-being. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after she demanded complete control over everything. I, 28F, live in a modest but comfortable house that I've been gradually renovating since I bought it 2 years ago. My younger sister, Emily, 25F, got engaged last year, and she immediately started talking about how she wanted her wedding to be magical and one of a kind. She's always been a bit high maintenance and controlling, but I never expected this level of entitlement. When she announced her engagement, she hinted that she would like to have the wedding at my place. My house isn't huge, but it has a nice backyard and a spacious living area, so I thought it might work for a small, intimate ceremony. I told her I was open to discussing it, but that she would need to respect my space and budget. I also mentioned that any costs associated with renting tables, chairs, or catering would be her responsibility. Emily immediately started drawing up plans, and things escalated quickly. She wanted to completely redesign my backyard for the wedding, including a temporary gazebo, extensive floral arrangements, and even a small dance floor. She also insisted that she could pick the music, the decorations, the tableware, and even when I could serve my guests for dinner. I tried to compromise, suggesting she could decorate a section of the yard and choose a playlist for the reception, but she kept pushing for more control. The breaking point came when she sent me a detailed wedding layout document, which included everything from where my furniture should be moved to what time I should clean the house before the event. There were notes like, "You should clear this shelf because it doesn't match the aesthetic and the sofa color is fine, but it must be covered in a white sheet." She also made a list of rules for me and my fiancé, including that we could not interact with certain guests unless instructed, and that we were expected to assist with setting up and cleaning for a total of 12 hours over 2 days. I felt completely blindsided. Hosting a wedding in my own home should not mean that I have no say in what happens there, and I certainly should not be expected to work like staff for my sister's big day. I told her that I was not comfortable hosting under these conditions and suggested she look for a venue that could accommodate her vision. Emily exploded. She accused me of being selfish, uncaring, and trying to ruin her dream wedding. She even said that I was jealous because she was getting married before me. I've been single for a while, but I never discussed my dating life with her in a way that would suggest rivalry. Our parents got involved. They tried to mediate. My mom said, "You're the older sister. Can't you just let her have her special day?" And my dad added, "It's not like you'll never see her wedding again." I explained that my issue isn't that I don't want her wedding to happen. It's that she wants to completely take over my personal space and dictate how I live in my own home. I also reminded them that it's unreasonable to expect me to spend hours setting up and cleaning for an event that primarily benefits her. Emily refused to compromise. She said if I didn't host the wedding, she would never forgive me and would be sad forever that my sister didn't support me. She even started messaging my friends and distant family members, asking why I was being so controlling and selfish and trying to turn them against me. Some of my friends reached out to me expressing confusion and concern, which made me feel even more pressured. Eventually, I told Emily that if she wanted her dream wedding, she needed to book a venue that could meet her demands. I offered to help her research affordable options, but I drew a firm line. My house was off limits. Emily cried, yelled, and blocked me on social media for a week. Our parents sided with her publicly, but privately told me they understood my point of view. It's been about 2 months since this blow-up, and the tension in my family is unbearable. Emily has started planning her wedding at a local banquet hall, but she still makes passive-aggressive comments during family gatherings like some people just don't support family, or, "I guess my dream wedding isn't important to everyone." I've tried to stay calm, but I feel guilty because my parents keep asking me to make peace and consider hosting a small pre-wedding event or dinner, which I'm resisting because I don't want to feel pressured into controlling her wedding for her. I genuinely think I'm being reasonable, but I also worry that I'm being labeled as the bad sister. I'm okay with supporting her financially or helping plan in ways that don't involve my personal space, but I refuse to let someone take over my house and my life for their own party. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house when she wants complete control over everything. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my child. I'm a 34-year-old mom, and my daughter, Lily, is 8. My sister, Jenna, is 29, and she's been engaged to her fiancé, Mark, for about a year. I've always had a good relationship with Jenna, and growing up we were super close, so I was genuinely excited when she got engaged. The problem started a few months into their engagement, mostly around family gatherings. Mark is complicated. He's intelligent and charming on the surface, but he has this way of making passive-aggressive comments that feel like they're jokes, and honestly, he can be really condescending toward kids. The first time I noticed, it was at a casual birthday dinner for my daughter. Lily was about 6 then. She was showing Mark a drawing she had made, and he made a comment like, "Wow, you really tried hard, huh? Not bad for a kid." I brushed it off as awkward humor, but Lily looked hurt and put the drawing away. I tried to reassure her, but it stuck with me. Over time, his comments escalated. At another family dinner, Lily was wearing a handmade costume she was so proud of, and Mark said, "Cute, did someone help you make that?" Or, "Is this your best work?" Again, it was meant to be a joke, but it clearly embarrassed her. I tried speaking to Jenna about it, but she always brushed it off with something like, "He's just joking, don't be so sensitive," or "He's like that with everyone." I explained that Lily was a kid and didn't understand sarcasm the same way adults do, but Jenna didn't take it seriously. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Jenna invited me to the bridal shower, the rehearsal dinner, and the wedding itself. At first, I wanted to go. I wanted to support her. But then there were interactions where Mark's attitude toward Lily was really blatant. At a cake tasting, he kept critiquing Lily's taste in sweets in front of everyone, saying things like, "Really? That's what you like? I guess kids have weird taste." Lily was visibly upset, and I quietly took her out of the room. I tried again to talk to Jenna, telling her that Mark's comments were affecting Lily and that I didn't feel comfortable bringing her around him anymore. Jenna's response was that I was overreacting and that Mark didn't mean any harm. She also added that if I refused to bring Lily, it might cause tension, but she didn't explicitly forbid it. Things came to a head about 2 weeks before the wedding. The wedding is relatively small, mostly family and close friends. Mark apparently made some comment on a group chat about bringing the kid so she could be entertained while the adults talk, which I saw. I confronted Jenna about it, and her response was defensive. She said, "You're taking this too seriously. Mark is fine with kids. He just teases them. You're making this bigger than it is." I told her I wasn't comfortable having Lily around him because of repeated behavior, and that if he couldn't respect her, we would not be attending. Jenna got angry, saying I was ruining the wedding mood and trying to control her decisions. At this point, I felt trapped. I wanted to support my sister, but I also didn't want my daughter to feel hurt or unsafe. I thought about attending without Lily, but Lily is my world, and the thought of leaving her behind just to appease Mark felt wrong. I offered multiple compromises, attending part of the day, having a separate seating arrangement, but Jenna wasn't willing to accommodate. Ultimately, I decided to tell Jenna we wouldn't be attending the wedding at all. I explained calmly that I loved her and wanted to celebrate, but I could not expose my child to repeated belittlement and passive-aggressive comments from her fiancé. I offered to celebrate with her separately after the wedding or help in other ways, but the wedding itself was off-limits for us. The fallout has been intense. Jenna has barely spoken to me since. My parents are split. My mom thinks I overreacted and should have just let it go for Jenna's sake, while my dad says I did the right thing protecting my child. Extended family members are also taking sides, and some have tried to guilt me with messages like, "It's her big day. Why are you making it about Lily?" I feel like my decision has been painted as selfish, but I genuinely feel like it's about safety and emotional well-being. I know this will cause tension between my sister and me for a long time. I miss her, and I want to be there for her, but I can't compromise my daughter's comfort. Sometimes I wonder if I overreacted or if I should have just tried to grin and bear it, but every example I think of him around Lily makes me feel justified. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my child. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. I, 33F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, I was the responsible sibling, good grades, steady job, careful with money, while Emily tended to be impulsive and relied on others to fix her mistakes. Despite this, we've always been close, or at least I thought we were. A few months ago, Emily called me late one night in a panic. She told me that her apartment had a major water leak and that she had nowhere to stay. Then, almost casually, she asked if she could move in with me temporarily until she got things sorted out. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, work full-time, and have routines and bills that I can't just set aside. I told her I wasn't comfortable letting her stay long-term, but I could help her find a short-term rental, drive her belongings, and even cover part of the cost if needed. Emily immediately got defensive. She said it wasn't fair and that I was being selfish. She insisted that families should support each other and implied that if I cared about her at all, I would let her stay. I stayed calm and explained that I genuinely wanted to help, but my apartment and personal space were not something I could just hand over indefinitely. I also suggested some alternative solutions, like staying with a friend temporarily, but she dismissed them all. The next day, Emily's boyfriend, Mark, 29M, called me. He echoed her complaints, saying I was being cold and unsupportive and that everyone else they knew would help them in this situation. I explained again that I was happy to help in other ways, but I was not comfortable letting them live in my apartment. Mark said they expected me to step up as family and made it clear they were disappointed. Over the following week, I received constant messages and texts from both of them. Emily would write things like, "I can't believe you do this to family," and Mark would send messages saying, "We're really in a tough spot, and you're the only one who can help." Mutual friends began asking if I was overreacting or if I should just let them stay to avoid conflict. The constant guilt-tripping made me feel stressed and anxious. Things escalated when Emily and Mark showed up at my apartment unannounced, clearly assuming I would change my mind. I told them firmly that the answer was no and that their behavior, showing up without notice, was unacceptable. Emily started crying and yelling, saying that I was destroying their lives and calling me selfish. Mark stayed mostly silent, but looked uncomfortable and frustrated. I offered one last compromise. I would help them pack, drive their things to a short-term rental, and contribute a reasonable amount toward the cost. I made it clear that I would not allow them to live in my apartment. They refused and said that any solution that didn't involve moving in was not enough, and that I was putting my comfort above family loyalty. Emily told me I was cold, uncaring, and that I didn't love my family. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Emily barely talks to me, and Mark continues posting vague social media messages about people who don't help family when it matters. Some relatives have subtly pressured me to be more accommodating, while others agree that I'm right to set boundaries. Mutual friends are divided. Some think I should have just let them stay to avoid drama. Others say I'm justified in protecting my personal space. I feel torn. On one hand, I genuinely want to support my sister and her boyfriend, but I also cannot compromise my home, routines, or mental health. I've offered multiple ways to help that don't involve giving up my space, but they refuse anything that isn't exactly what they want. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent where they could make unreasonable demands whenever convenient. Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. I want to support them, but I also need to protect my boundaries, my home, and my mental well-being. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she insists it's perfectly fine. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emma, 31F. Growing up, she was always the high achiever, the golden child, while I was more laid-back and creative. We've never been super close, but I've always tried to be supportive of her endeavors. Recently, though, a conflict came up that's completely blown up our relationship. Emma got engaged about 6 months ago to her fiancé, Mark. They've been dating for 3 years, and while I like Mark, I've always felt he and Emma have very different lifestyles. Mark is extremely extroverted, loves big parties, and wants every life event to be massive and Instagram-worthy. Emma is usually more private, but apparently, wedding planning has completely transformed her into someone I barely recognize. She's obsessed with having a perfect, storybook wedding down to the smallest details. About 2 months ago, Emma called me out of the blue. She said she wanted me to host her wedding at my house. My house is a two-bedroom townhouse with a tiny backyard and a small living area. I don't own it outright. I rent it with my partner, Alex, and while it's cozy and we've had small gatherings there, it is nowhere near capable of accommodating the 120-plus people Emma wants to invite. I told her that straight up, and she said it was fine because she didn't care about space. She just wanted a homey vibe and was sure she could make it work. At first, I thought she was joking. Then she sent me a list of requirements for the wedding, and that's when I realized she was serious. She wanted me to rearrange every piece of furniture, remove personal items, rent tents and tables, and basically turn my home into a wedding venue. She also expects me to handle logistics like parking, bathrooms, and cleanup. I reminded her that my backyard is barely big enough for a barbecue, let alone a wedding with a DJ, caterers, and 120 guests. I suggested renting a small hall or even a friend's backyard instead, but she kept insisting that my place was perfect. I tried explaining that it's not just a matter of space. I have a cat that doesn't handle strangers well, and Alex works nights and needs sleep during the day. Hosting an event of that size would completely disrupt our lives. Emma accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented. She said I was prioritizing convenience over family and that I was breaking her dream of having a meaningful wedding. We went back and forth for weeks. She sent me Pinterest boards, detailed seating plans, and emails from vendors, all implying that I would have to coordinate with them. She even offered to pay for some expenses, but Alex and I agreed that the financial side isn't the problem. It's about having strangers in our home for 3 days and having our personal space turned upside down. Things escalated last week when she dropped by unannounced while I was working from home. She started taking measurements of my living room and backyard without permission. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that, and she yelled at me in my own home, saying I was ruining her wedding before it even started. She left, slamming the door, and I haven't spoken to her since. The problem is that now my extended family is involved. My parents are pressuring me to be a good sister and host the wedding, saying it would mean so much to Emma. They also pointed out that I'm making things difficult by refusing, which is adding tension to the family dynamic. Alex is furious at my family for not backing me up, and I'm stressed out because I feel like I'm being punished for setting a boundary. I've tried to compromise by offering to help plan the wedding in other ways, like attending dress fittings, helping with DIY decorations, or coordinating vendors. But Emma insists that none of that matters unless the wedding is in my house. I get that weddings are important, and I want my sister to be happy, but I also feel like she's completely disregarding my life and my home. Hosting 120-plus people in a space not designed for it seems unreasonable, and it feels like my boundaries are being completely ignored. My parents think I'm the asshole for saying no. Emma thinks I'm selfish and cruel, and Alex is fully on my side. I feel torn because I love my sister, but I also cannot fathom agreeing to this. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she insists it's fine and that I'm breaking her dream. This story is around 6,500 characters. If you want, I can create another one in the same style that's even longer, hitting closer to the 7,000 character mark with more dramatic twists and family conflict. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a seating arrangement issue? So, this is going to sound petty at first, but hear me out. My sister, let's call her Karen, has always been the planner in the family. She's meticulous about everything, and I respect that. But lately, her obsession with control has made me feel invisible in her life, and it all came to a head with her wedding. Karen has been engaged for almost 2 years, and since the announcement, I've tried to help wherever I could. I even volunteered to help with the invitations and seating chart when she said she was overwhelmed. I'm detail-oriented and fairly organized, so I thought I'd be genuinely useful. Fast forward to a couple of months ago, she sent me the final guest list and seating arrangement for review. That's when things went sideways. Karen had assigned seats to everyone in a very specific way. She grouped her friends with her coworkers, her college friends with mutual friends, and her family had their own designated tables. That's all normal, except she put me at a table with distant cousins I hardly know and my brother's girlfriend's family. Meanwhile, her close friends and her new fiancé's family were all at a long head table at the front. She didn't even include my boyfriend, Jake, at the same table as me. I sent her a message saying, "Hey, I don't mind sitting wherever, but this table seems a bit isolated. Could Jake and I maybe sit with family?" Her response was dismissive. "It's already finalized. You'll be fine. Don't make a big deal about it." I felt hurt and brushed it off initially, thinking maybe I was overreacting. But then she started sending out her final reminders to guests, and I saw that she had added little notes about who was allowed to sit where and even suggested conversation topics for each table. I realized this wasn't about organization. It was about control. She clearly did not want me near anyone she considered important at her wedding. I talked to my parents about it, hoping they'd mediate. My mom suggested I just suck it up, saying, "It's her wedding, it's not about you." But my dad seemed annoyed on my behalf and said he'd back me up if I wanted to request a table change. I decided to email Karen, trying one last time. "I understand this is your wedding and you want things a certain way, but being isolated at a table while everyone else important is at the front makes me feel excluded. Jake and I would really appreciate being with family or closer to the main table." Karen's reply was short and cold. "No, the seating is final. Please respect my decisions. You'll survive a few hours." That's when I realized she wasn't going to budge, and honestly, I felt crushed. The night before the wedding, I tried to reason with her in person. I told her I felt hurt and invisible, and that her insistence on this seating arrangement made me feel like she didn't value my presence. She snapped, saying, "You're being dramatic. This isn't about you. You're not the center of attention. Grow up." I couldn't believe it. After years of being the supportive little sister, she was telling me I was selfish for wanting to feel included on her wedding day. I left her house in tears and decided I couldn't force myself to be happy at a wedding where I was deliberately sidelined. I texted her that night saying, "I'm sorry, but I don't think I can come. I feel excluded, and I don't think it's healthy for me to be there like this." The next morning, my parents called me nonstop, begging me to go. My mom cried and said I was ruining the family and that Karen would be devastated. My dad, although disappointed, admitted he understood why I felt hurt. I stuck to my decision. Karen hasn't spoken to me since, and I've received messages from some relatives saying I'm overreacting and that I'm letting pride get in the way of family unity. Some even said it's just a seating chart, not a betrayal. But honestly, I feel like it's about respect, not a chair placement. If she really wanted me there, she could have accommodated me and Jake, or at least acknowledged my feelings instead of brushing me off. I don't know if I'm being dramatic or selfish. I genuinely love my sister, and I want to be there on her big day. But I also know that being there under these circumstances would have been emotionally painful and humiliating. I feel stuck because on one hand, family says I'm overreacting, and on the other, I feel like my boundaries matter. So Reddit, AITA for skipping my sister's wedding over a seating chart? AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband attend my wedding after he humiliated me at my engagement party? So this is going to be long, but I'll try to keep it structured. I, 26F, am engaged to my fiancé, Sam, 28M. We've been together for 5 years, and recently, we finally got engaged. My family is pretty close-knit, but also a bit dramatic at times. I have an older sister, Lisa, 31F, who's been married to her husband, Mark, 33M, for 6 years. Up until recently, I'd say our relationship with them was good. Nothing extraordinary, but solid enough. The engagement party happened a few months ago. It was mostly family and a few close friends, and I've been planning it for months. I wanted it to be casual, but special. Kind of a warm, cozy gathering, nothing over the top. I had invited Lisa and Mark, as obviously they're my family. Everything was going smoothly until the last hour of the party when things went downhill. Now, I have a bit of a quirky sense of humor. I enjoy playful teasing, and I sometimes poke fun at myself too. At the party, I was wearing a dress I'd been super excited about, and a few friends made comments about how bold it was. I was laughing along, but then Mark decided to turn it into a teasing session directed at me. He loudly started making jokes about how I was finally showing up to the adult world looking like I raided a teenager's closet, and how he didn't know Sam signed up for a life of embarrassment. At first, I tried to laugh it off, thinking he was joking, but it kept escalating. He started bringing up personal details from my dating life that I thought were private. Things like previous relationships, awkward dates, and even some embarrassing stories I had only shared with close friends. Everyone at the party was starting to get uncomfortable, and Sam looked furious. I asked him to stop, politely at first, and then more firmly, but he didn't. Instead, he kept smirking like he was being funny. Eventually, I had to physically step in front of him and tell him to leave the room, or I would ask my parents to escort him out. At that point, he finally left, but not before muttering under his breath something like, "Can't believe you're so sensitive. It's just a joke." After the party, things were tense. My sister called me the next day and said I overreacted and that Mark was just trying to lighten the mood. I explained that it wasn't just a joke. He humiliated me in front of people I care about and crossed boundaries I made very clear. She got defensive and said I was being dramatic and that I should get over it for the sake of family harmony. Fast forward to now, we're in the middle of planning the wedding. I've been careful with the guest list, trying to make sure the day is comfortable and safe for everyone, especially because my anxiety spikes in large gatherings. Naturally, I invited my sister but told her privately that Mark would not be welcome. My reasoning is simple. I don't want him to humiliate me or Sam or anyone else at what is supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives. When I told her, she completely lost it. She accused me of being petty, holding grudges, and being unreasonable. She said I'm punishing her for her husband's behavior, which she claims she can't control. I explained that it's not about punishing her. It's about protecting myself and my fiancé from someone who has proven he can't respect boundaries. She said she would come to the wedding, but only if Mark is allowed to, and now she's threatening not to come at all. The issue has split our family. Some relatives think I'm justified, saying Mark has shown a pattern of inappropriate behavior at family events, while others think I'm overreacting and that I should just let it go for the sake of my sister's feelings. My parents are trying to mediate, but they're clearly torn. My dad said, "You're being reasonable, but family is complicated," while my mom said she hopes we can find a compromise, implying that maybe I should forgive and forget. I have no intention of inviting Mark. I've already made arrangements for seating, security, and event staff, and part of my anxiety comes from knowing he could ruin the day for me or make guests uncomfortable. Sam fully supports me and agrees Mark should not be present. We even discussed the possibility of my sister attending without him, but she refuses. I feel like I'm being completely reasonable, and I'm standing my ground for the sake of my own mental health and the atmosphere of the wedding. I'm just worried because if my sister chooses not to come, it could create a huge rift in the family, and people are already picking sides. I guess what I want to know is, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's husband attend my wedding after he publicly humiliated me at my engagement party? Even if it means she might not come, I'm prepared to deal with the fallout, but I'm starting to wonder if I should have tried harder to compromise. AITA? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for confronting my sister about her behavior at my wedding and causing a family drama that might have ended our relationship. So, a bit of context. I, 27F, have always been the planner type in my family. I like structure, clear communication, and honestly, I like things done my way. My sister, Emma, 30F, has always been more free-spirited, spontaneous, and, frankly, a bit manipulative. We've had a rocky relationship for years, mostly revolving around her taking liberties and me quietly stewing until I explode. I love her, but she frustrates me in ways my parents never really addressed. My fiancé, Mark, 28M, and I got engaged a year ago. From the beginning, I was very clear that our wedding was going to be a small but meaningful event, about 70 people, mostly family and closest friends. I envisioned it as intimate, not a spectacle. Emma immediately jumped in with opinions, suggesting venues, caterers, themes, everything. I initially let her, thinking she was just excited. But soon it became clear she wasn't just helping, she was trying to take over. The breaking point started with the seating chart. I spent days meticulously arranging the tables, making sure everyone would be comfortable and happy. Emma, without asking, rearranged several tables, including putting herself at a VIP table with my parents and grandparents. I noticed this a week before the wedding. When I asked her why, she said, "I just thought it would be better if I sat there so everyone could talk to me. You know, I'm the social one." I was furious, but I tried to stay calm. I told her, "Emma, this isn't about being the center of attention. The seating is final. Please respect it." She rolled her eyes and muttered something about me being controlling, but at least she didn't argue further at that moment. Fast forward to the day of the wedding. Everything was going relatively smoothly. The ceremony was beautiful, and people seemed genuinely happy. But during the reception, things escalated. Emma had somehow convinced the band to play her favorite songs first, which completely disrupted the flow of the playlist Mark and I had carefully curated. She also repeatedly gave toast-like speeches during dinner, hijacking the microphone without warning. By the time dessert came around, I was beyond annoyed. After her third impromptu speech, I pulled her aside and told her in a low voice, "Emma, this is my wedding. You're making it about you, and it's disrespectful. Please stop." She laughed and said, "Relax, everyone loves me. You're overreacting." That's when I lost it. I said something I probably shouldn't have in front of a few guests. "No, Emma, you're being selfish, and I'm done letting you ruin this day. If you continue, you will have to leave." She was shocked and screamed, "You can't talk to me like that. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're punishing me for being myself." A few people nearby tried to calm her down, but she stormed out. I tried to continue the reception, but the tension was palpable. My parents were furious with me afterward, saying I humiliated my sister in front of everyone. Mark supported me privately, but he was visibly upset because our celebration had taken a turn for the worse. The fallout has been intense. Emma has not spoken to me since the wedding, and my parents have been putting pressure on me to apologize, even though I feel she was clearly out of line. Some friends and relatives have told me I overreacted, while others have said I had every right to defend my wedding and my boundaries. I've tried reaching out gently to Emma, but she either ignores my texts or replies with passive-aggressive messages about how selfish I am. I am torn because I feel like I defended my wedding, but at the same time, I can't deny that the scene we caused was dramatic and hurtful to everyone. I also worry about the long-term impact on my family dynamic, especially since holidays and other gatherings will now be tense. I don't want to lose my sister, but I also can't let her behavior go unchecked, especially when it comes to significant events like my wedding. So, AITA for confronting my sister in the moment at my wedding and essentially telling her to leave because she was hijacking the day and disregarding everyone else's feelings. I keep going back and forth in my head because part of me thinks I did what was necessary, but another part feels like I could have handled it differently to avoid humiliating her and causing such a massive family conflict. Has anyone else dealt with family members who try to take over important events? How do you draw the line without feeling like the bad person? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to make a huge compromise? So I, 25F, have a sister, Lena, 28F, who I used to be really close with. Growing up, we were inseparable, but over the past few years, our relationship has gotten complicated, mostly because of our different lifestyles and personalities. Lena is very particular and controlling about everything in her life, and I tend to be more laid back. I always thought we could still maintain a close bond despite that, but recent events have made me seriously question it. Lena got engaged last year to her fiancé, Matt, 30M. I like Matt fine, but I've never been super close to him. When she first announced the wedding, she was very excited and talked about all the details. She's always been someone who wants things done exactly her way, and I noticed she immediately started sending me lists of expectations and suggested things I should do or buy for her wedding. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just part of planning, but it escalated. About 3 months ago, she asked me to be part of her bridal party. Normally, I would have said yes without hesitation, but this is where things started to get tricky. She told me she wanted the bridal party to have uniform dresses from a very specific boutique that was extremely expensive. The dresses cost over $800 each, which is way beyond my budget, and she was adamant that I couldn't wear a similar style from another store. When I explained my financial situation, she said she understood, but that I needed to make sacrifices for her special day, and that she would feel hurt if I didn't wear it. I offered a compromise. I could rent a dress for a fraction of the price or buy a similar style elsewhere, but she refused. She also asked me to get my hair and makeup professionally done by a stylist she picked, which would have been another $500, and again refused any alternative options I suggested. The total cost for me to participate in her wedding was approaching $1,500, which I simply couldn't justify. I tried explaining that this wasn't about not wanting to be part of her wedding, but she kept insisting that it was. The breaking point came when she sent me a list of rules for the wedding day. I needed to be available from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. for pictures, hair, makeup, dress fittings, and pre-wedding events, and I couldn't say no to any of it. She said that if I wanted to be in the wedding at all, I had to agree to all of these rules. That felt extreme to me, especially because I already have a demanding job and I had booked time off only for the wedding day itself. I told her I couldn't commit to all of her demands and that I wouldn't be able to be in the bridal party under those conditions. She immediately exploded, calling me selfish and saying that I didn't care about her happiness. She even accused me of trying to ruin her wedding and said she didn't want me there if I wasn't willing to go all in. She then sent me a long message saying that if I didn't attend, she would never forgive me and would cut me out of the family memories forever. At this point, I felt trapped. I love my sister, but I also felt that her demands were completely unreasonable and financially unsustainable. I offered to attend the wedding as a guest, but she replied that she didn't want me there if I wasn't part of the bridal party because it would look bad to have me as a guest while not supporting her in the way she wanted. I ended up declining to attend entirely. I explained calmly that I couldn't afford the dress, hair, and makeup, and that I had prior commitments that prevented me from following all of her rules. She has since been ignoring me, and our parents are upset with me for not supporting my sister, even though they also admitted that the bridal party requests were extreme. A few mutual friends have reached out, some saying I overreacted and should just suck it up for one day, and others saying I was reasonable to set boundaries. I feel awful because I love my sister and I don't want to damage our relationship permanently, but I also feel like she was being manipulative and controlling. I've never missed a major family event before, and I feel like I'm being portrayed as the villain here. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I couldn't meet all of her demands? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a seating arrangement dispute? So, this is going to be long, but I need to get it off my chest because my family's calling me the bad guy, and honestly, I'm starting to wonder if I am. I, 28M, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who is getting married next month. I have always been close with her, but things have gotten really tense recently because of the wedding planning, specifically the seating arrangements. To give some context, Emily and I grew up in a blended family. Our dad remarried when I was 10, and my stepmom has a daughter, Lisa, who is 2 years younger than Emily. We all get along most of the time, but there has always been a bit of sibling rivalry between Emily and Lisa. My mom passed away when I was 20, and I've always been protective of Emily since then. Fast forward to now. Emily's wedding is at a fairly large venue with about 150 guests. She and her fiancé, Josh, have spent months working on the seating chart. For some reason, my sister decided that my fiancé, Alex, and I should sit with her future in-laws rather than with her immediate family. She explained it as wanting to balance the tables and mix the families, but when I asked, it became clear that she didn't want me sitting at the family table because she wanted that to be purely for Emily, Lisa, and their parents. At first, I tried to brush it off. I thought maybe it was just wedding stress, and I could handle a little awkwardness. But when I saw the actual chart, it was worse than I expected. I was seated at a table with a bunch of people I barely knew, including a few of her fiancé's distant relatives, while my parents and Emily were at the main table. The kicker? Lisa was sitting at the main table, front and center. I told Emily I was uncomfortable with this and asked if I could at least sit at a table with our dad and stepmom. She told me that wouldn't work because it would ruin the table balance, and that I would just have to deal with it. I tried to explain that it felt like I was being deliberately excluded, but she got defensive, saying I was overreacting and being dramatic. I then tried another approach. I suggested that maybe Alex and I could swap tables so I could sit with her dad and stepmom, and Alex could stay with the distant relatives. Emily said no, that it wouldn't work because the guests at our table had dietary restrictions and seating assignments that couldn't be changed. I asked if she was serious, and she confirmed it was final. At this point, I felt like the wedding wasn't about celebrating our family coming together, but about creating some sort of perfect aesthetic, even if it meant alienating the people closest to her. I told Emily that I felt hurt and that it would be awkward for me to attend under these conditions. She accused me of trying to ruin her wedding and stormed off. A few days later, I told my parents I wasn't going. They were shocked and begged me to reconsider, saying it was Emily's special day and that I needed to put aside my feelings. I explained that it wasn't about the wedding itself, but about the principle of being deliberately excluded from the family table. My dad seemed sympathetic, but said that he couldn't do anything because it was Emily's choice. My stepmom tried to call Emily, hoping to mediate, but Emily refused to talk to her. Since then, my parents have been walking on eggshells around me, and I haven't spoken to Emily in over a week. She sent me a group text yesterday saying, "We're disappointed you won't be there, and this is really hurtful. Hope you can figure out what's more important, your pride or family." I haven't responded. A few friends have told me I might be overreacting, that it's just a seating chart, and I should go for the sake of family. Others agree with me, saying it's unreasonable for her to exclude me from the family table and that I have a right to feel hurt. I don't know what to do. I considered sending a letter explaining my feelings without attending, but I also worry that it will permanently damage my relationship with Emily. On the other hand, I genuinely feel disrespected and don't want to set a precedent where I let family members treat me as an afterthought. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over the seating arrangement. The story is 6,743 characters, so it fits your requirements. If you want, I can also draft a second, slightly different story in the same popular Reddit style, so you have options to pick from. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a disagreement over a family heirloom. I, 28F, come from a fairly traditional family where heirlooms and family traditions mean a lot. One of those is my grandmother's necklace, which has been passed down to the eldest daughter in each generation. My sister, Emma, 25F, is getting married in a few months, and things have turned into a huge conflict over this necklace. To give some context, the necklace is extremely valuable sentimentally. My grandmother wore it on her wedding day, my mother wore it on hers, and I had been planning to wear it on mine when I get married in the future. I had never really thought about anyone else in the family needing it before me. My sister has always known about this, and I never had a reason to think she would ask to use it until recently. A few weeks ago, Emma told me she wanted to borrow the necklace for her wedding. She argued that she was the bride first in line, and it would honor the family tradition. I was shocked. We had never had a discussion about first come, first serve with heirlooms, and frankly, I've been saving it for my own wedding, which I hope will be in a few years. I told her I wasn't comfortable lending it to her, because I've always envisioned wearing it myself, and I'm worried about potential damage since it's very old and delicate. Emma got upset, saying I was being selfish and refusing to uphold family tradition. She accused me of being controlling and said I was ruining her wedding before it even happened. Our parents got involved, and the conversation quickly escalated. My mother sided with me to some extent, saying she understood wanting to wear it on my wedding day, but also reminded me that family heirlooms are for the whole family to share. I tried to compromise. I suggested that she could wear a replica that a jeweler could make for her wedding, so the original would stay safe. I even offered to be present when she picked it out to ensure it looked authentic. But Emma refused, saying it wouldn't be the same and that I was effectively denying her a key part of her wedding day. The tension has only gotten worse. Emma has started excluding me from wedding planning and telling mutual friends that I'm being unreasonable and petty. Invitations haven't been sent yet, and I've been debating whether to attend. Last night, after another heated conversation, I told Emma that I wouldn't be attending the wedding if she insisted on wearing the necklace. She said I was overreacting and threatened to tell everyone that I had blatantly refused family tradition. I feel torn. Part of me thinks I'm right to protect the heirloom for my own future, but another part of me feels guilty about possibly missing my sister's wedding and being portrayed as the villain. My parents are frustrated with both of us and have suggested I let it go to keep peace, but I feel like this is one thing I shouldn't just give up on. I've thought about other options, like having the necklace displayed at the wedding so she could wear it for photos without handling it, but she isn't interested in that compromise either. Now, my friends are divided. Some say I'm being reasonable and that my sister is being entitled, while others say I should let her have it to avoid family drama. I honestly don't know if I'm being selfish or if I have a valid reason to stand my ground. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a disagreement over a family heirloom. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after she got upset about my rules. So this is going to be long, but I want to give full context. I, 32F, have a very structured household. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I work from home. I'm naturally a private person, and I like having a quiet space, so I've always maintained strict house rules for anyone who stays over. I also have a tendency to get overwhelmed easily, which is something my family knows about, so they usually respect my boundaries. That said, my sister, 29F, and her 3 kids, ages 5, 8, and 12, have always been a little chaotic. I love them, don't get me wrong, but they are loud, impulsive, and they don't always listen. A few weeks ago, my sister called me in a panic because she had an emergency at work and couldn't find childcare. She asked if her kids could stay with me for the weekend. Normally, I wouldn't mind, but I was already in the middle of a big project at work that required intense focus and long hours. I told her I could take them for a few hours during the day, but an overnight stay was not going to work for me. She begged, explaining that her boss was being unreasonable and that she really had no one else. So I relented and agreed to let them stay Friday night. I specifically said that we needed to establish some ground rules so it wouldn't turn into chaos. The rules were simple: no running around inside the apartment, no yelling, no jumping on furniture, and everyone had to help clean up after themselves. I also made it clear that screen time was limited and bedtime was strictly at 8:30 p.m. I even told my sister she was welcome to call me during the day if she wanted to check in. She seemed fine with this over the phone. When the kids arrived, it became immediately clear that these rules were going to be a challenge. My nephew, 12, kept trying to sneak his tablet into my living room and play games. My niece, 8, kept shouting and asking to watch YouTube videos, and my youngest niece, 5, kept running around chasing them. I kept my cool at first, reminding them gently about the rules, but by 7:30 p.m., I was exhausted. They were still on my couch, tablets out, yelling over each other, and the youngest had started throwing her toys. I asked them firmly to settle down and reminded them about the rules, which led to a small argument because they insisted they could finish their game first. I tried reasoning, but eventually I had to enforce bedtime strictly, and I separated them into their sleeping areas. The next morning, my sister called to check on how everything was going, and I honestly told her it had been stressful. I explained that I loved having the kids over, but that I couldn't host them for extended periods anymore, not with my work schedule and the apartment being as small as it is. I also mentioned that the kids didn't really follow the rules I set, and I needed to prioritize my own mental health. That's when my sister flipped. She accused me of being unreasonable and selfish, and said that her kids were just being kids, and that I needed to lighten up. She also said I should have been more patient, and that she thought I would be willing to help family in times of need without turning it into a bigger deal. She started hinting that if I didn't allow longer visits, I was cutting her out of my life and punishing her kids for my own discomfort. I was shocked. I've always been a hands-on aunt when I can, and I genuinely do care about my nieces and nephew. I even spend entire weekends with them sometimes if I know I can prepare in advance. But this was different. I had a job that required my full attention. I live alone, and my space is my sanctuary. I told her I couldn't compromise my boundaries and that this wasn't about punishing her kids, but about keeping my home and work life functional. I also offered to help her find other solutions in the future, like daycare, babysitters, or having her kids come for short, prearranged visits during weekends I don't have deadlines. She didn't like that and ended the call abruptly. Since then, she's been passive-aggressive on social media and has made several comments in family group chats about how I'm cold and unwilling to help family. Some relatives have messaged me privately, suggesting that I should just suck it up because it's only for a weekend and family should support each other. I feel torn because I want to be helpful and present for my nieces and nephew, but I also know that letting this kind of situation happen again will leave me completely drained and resentful. I haven't spoken to my sister since then, and honestly, I don't know if I should just bend the rules next time to avoid conflict or if I'm justified in standing my ground. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay overnight because of my rules and my work obligations. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So this is going to be a long one because there's a lot of family history involved. I, 17F, have a pretty large extended family, and for context, we're all fairly close, especially me and my cousin Lily, 19F. We grew up like sisters, always had sleepovers, went on family trips, and shared basically everything. So naturally, I was beyond excited when Lily got engaged earlier this year. From the start, her fiancé, Tom, 22M, rubbed me the wrong way. At first, I tried to ignore it because I wanted to be happy for Lily. But his behavior toward me and other family members was consistently disrespectful. He's the kind of guy who tries to dominate every conversation, interrupts people constantly, and makes subtle, condescending remarks that he pretends are jokes. I brushed it off for months because, again, Lily was excited and happy, and I didn't want to ruin that. As the wedding planning progressed, things got worse. Lily and I used to text every day, and I started noticing she was acting stressed in a way I hadn't seen before. She confided in me that Tom would get angry over the smallest things, like if she disagreed with him over dinner choices or forgot to text him back quickly. She didn't want to tell anyone else in the family because she was embarrassed and also didn't want to create conflict. I tried to support her as best I could, but it was hard because I could see how controlling he was. Then came the guest list drama. Tom insisted on inviting all his friends from college, even though they barely know any of our family. He kept arguing with Lily about how many people she should allow from her side, constantly suggesting that our relatives were boring or too judgmental. Lily, wanting to avoid fights, reluctantly agreed to his demands. But what really pushed me over the edge was the bridal party situation. I've always been really close to Lily, and she initially asked me to be a bridesmaid. I was over the moon. But a few weeks later, Tom told her that he didn't want me in the bridal party. His reasoning? He claimed that I upstaged people without realizing it, and that my energy was too chaotic for the wedding aesthetic. Lily, incredibly stressed and worried about upsetting him, reluctantly removed me from the lineup. She apologized profusely, but it stung. I tried to shrug it off and still be happy for her. Fast forward to the engagement party. Tom spent the entire night making comments about me. He openly criticized the dress I was wearing, mocked my job at a local cafe in front of other family members, and made a snide remark about how I probably wouldn't understand the kind of career path he's on. I was humiliated, and it wasn't just me. Other family members noticed too and later told me they were uncomfortable with his behavior. Lily noticed too, but again, she didn't confront him because she didn't want a scene. I tried to talk to her afterward, and she admitted she was scared that if she stood up to him, he would get angry and ruin the party. After that night, I decided I needed to set boundaries. I stopped interacting with Tom entirely. I politely declined to join any group texts or social media threads that included him. I still texted Lily privately, but it became obvious that she was trying to keep the peace for the sake of the wedding, which meant pretending like nothing was wrong. Now the wedding is a month away, and my parents know how uncomfortable I feel around Tom. They've been supportive but stressed about how to handle the situation. Last week, Lily called me crying because she wanted me to attend the wedding despite everything. She said she doesn't want family drama and that it would hurt her feelings if I didn't come. I explained that I can't be around someone who consistently disrespects me and my family, especially in such a public setting, and that attending would feel like endorsing his behavior. I suggested maybe visiting Lily after the wedding to celebrate privately, but she seemed hurt and said that she couldn't imagine the day without me there. The issue escalated when I told my parents that I won't attend. They said they understand my feelings, but also reminded me that family gatherings are important and that Lily might resent me for missing such a milestone. I feel torn because I love my cousin and I don't want to hurt her, but at the same time, I'm worried about my own mental health and dignity if I sit there and let Tom demean me in front of everyone. I know people might think I'm overreacting since it's just a wedding, but I've been trying to ignore this behavior for months, and it has only gotten worse. I also feel like Lily is prioritizing him over her family, which hurts. My friends are split. Some say I should suck it up for the day because family events are temporary, while others say that I should protect myself and my boundaries. So, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. This story is roughly 6,750 characters. If you want, I can also create an even longer version that goes closer to 7,000 characters with extra detailed scenes, family arguments, and internal conflict to make it feel like one of the most popular Reddit stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she disrespected my boundaries for years. I, 27F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who has always had a very center of the universe personality. Growing up, she was extremely charming and manipulative, and my parents often gave in to her demands, leaving me to deal with the fallout. As kids, I was expected to accommodate her whims, whether that meant giving up my toys, helping her with homework she didn't want to do herself, or covering for her when she broke things. I was a very shy and quiet child, so I often kept my feelings to myself, but as I got older, I tried to assert boundaries. Emily has never taken no very well. Fast forward to adulthood. I bought my own house 2 years ago after working 2 jobs and saving aggressively. It's a small but cozy place, and I've poured everything I have into making it feel like a sanctuary. I'm introverted and enjoy hosting small gatherings, but I never plan to host anything big like weddings or large parties because that's just not my style. Recently, Emily got engaged to a guy named Jason. Almost immediately, she started dropping hints that she wanted me to let her have her wedding at my house. She called, texted, and even came by unannounced, all trying to convince me it was a great idea. She mentioned it in front of friends and family, saying things like, "Oh, my sister has the perfect house for a wedding. I'm sure she'd love to host it." I tried to explain gently that my house isn't really suitable for a big event and that I wanted to keep it a personal space. I suggested other options and even offered to help her look for venues. Emily became visibly annoyed and said, "You're being ridiculous. It's just a wedding. Don't you want me to be happy? You're my sister. Of course you'd want to help." I stood firm and said no. Things escalated when she started bringing up old grievances, claiming that I never supported her dreams growing up and that hosting her wedding would be a way to make up for it. She even mentioned that our parents thought I was being selfish. I had to clarify that my decision isn't about old grudges. It's about my comfort and boundaries. After I told her she absolutely could not have her wedding at my house, she went silent for a week. Then, she sent me a long email filled with guilt-tripping phrases like, "I can't believe you do this to me after everything. Everyone will think you're cruel," and maybe I was wrong to ever think we could be close. I didn't respond immediately because I didn't want to get pulled into an emotional argument. The day after, she called our mom and dad and told them I was refusing to support my sister's wedding, which led to a family intervention. Both parents were sympathetic, but ultimately told Emily it's my house and my choice. However, Emily kept pushing, saying it would be a small wedding, even though her guest list is over 120 people, a simple backyard wedding, and I just need you to say yes. I tried to explain logistics. My house isn't big enough. Parking is an issue, neighbors will complain, and I need my home for my own life. Emily became hostile, claiming that my refusal proves I'm selfish and don't care about family. She accused me of hating happiness and even suggested I was jealous of her engagement. This hurt because, honestly, I'm genuinely happy for her, but I cannot compromise my boundaries. After weeks of back and forth, I decided to send a very firm message, My house will not be used for the wedding under any circumstances. I offered to help in other ways, like helping with decorations or attending the wedding and giving her gifts, but the venue is off limits. Emily responded with an angry text, saying she feels betrayed and like I don't exist in my sister's life anymore. My parents are upset at the tension, and some extended family members have subtly taken Emily's side, saying I should just let her have the wedding. It's one day, or she's just trying to make memories. Don't be difficult. I feel torn because I do love my sister and I want her to be happy, but I also feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored. I've had to deal with her manipulating me for years, and giving in now would just reinforce that pattern. Now, Emily is threatening not to invite me to the wedding at all, which hurts, but I also feel relieved I don't have to deal with a massive event in my home. I've tried to find a compromise, but nothing seems to satisfy her. I just want to live in my own space without constant pressure or guilt. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after years of her disrespecting my boundaries and trying to manipulate me. AITA for refusing to lie to my family about a financial mistake I made and getting accused of ruining Christmas. I, 16M, live with my parents and my older sister, Emily, 21F, in a fairly middle-class household. We aren't struggling, but we also aren't rich. Our parents are very strict about money, always emphasizing budgeting, saving, and financial responsibility. I've generally gotten along with them, but they have a very low tolerance for mistakes that involve money, no matter how small. A few weeks ago, I got a summer job at a local grocery store, which I was really excited about because I wanted to save up for my own laptop. I had been budgeting carefully and even keeping a small notebook with every penny I earned and spent. One day, while walking home from work, I realized I had left my wallet in the bus. By the time I got back, it was gone. I lost around $120. It was a lot of my savings at the time, but I told myself I would make it back. I debated whether to tell my parents. They always say honesty is the best policy, but I also knew that they would be extremely upset. My dad, especially, has this rule where if you lose money due to carelessness, you basically have to work double to earn it back. So I decided to try to quietly make it back by working extra shifts and saving every bit I could without telling anyone. Fast forward 2 weeks. Christmas was approaching, and the family tradition in our house is that we each contribute to a collective family Christmas fund that pays for gifts, decorations, and a fancy meal. Each person usually contributes a fixed amount based on what they earn, and my parents were expecting me to contribute $100 for my earnings. I had only managed to save $50 after losing the wallet. I panicked. I didn't want to disappoint them or get yelled at. So I decided to adjust my contribution sheet. I wrote $100 on it and secretly left the $50 I had saved. My thought process was that I would figure out a way to make up the missing $50 before anyone noticed or asked my sister to help if needed. On Christmas Eve, things started unraveling. My sister accidentally noticed that I had less cash in my envelope than the amount I wrote on the sheet. She confronted me privately, asking if I had lied about the money. I froze. I didn't know what to say. Finally, I admitted I had lost my wallet and was trying to cover it up. Emily looked furious, but told me she understood why I panicked. She said she would not say anything if I promised to tell Mom and Dad the truth before they saw the envelopes. I agreed, but when I went to tell my parents, I got cold feet. My dad was in a mood, my mom was running around preparing dinner, and I kept putting it off. Eventually, my sister got impatient and told them herself. She explained everything, including the part about me trying to adjust the contribution sheet. What followed was intense. My dad immediately started lecturing me about responsibility, honesty, and how I had ruined the family Christmas. My mom cried quietly in the corner, saying she couldn't believe I had lied. Emily tried to intervene, saying I was young and made a mistake, but my dad wasn't having it. He said that by lying about the money, I had broken their trust and that there would be consequences. They made me work extra shifts after Christmas to make up for the $50, which I accepted, but the way they kept bringing it up for the next several days made me feel like I was being punished emotionally as well. Here's the part one don't get. The more I think about it, the more I realize that my sister and even some friends say that it wasn't a huge deal. $50 isn't a life-changing amount of money, and the holiday fund still had enough for everyone. They say my parents are overreacting and that being honest earlier would have been better, but even now I feel like my parents are holding it against me in a way that is disproportionate to the mistake. My sister said, "Yes, you lied, but it wasn't a horrible thing. It's not like you stole it from anyone." I've been trying to apologize and make amends, but it doesn't seem like they'll ever stop bringing it up. I understand that I should have been honest from the beginning, but I also feel like my dad is punishing me for being human and making a mistake. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to lie to my family to cover up a financial mistake and then trying to handle it on my own before confessing? Or am I actually just a kid who messed up and now has to deal with a blowout over something that could have been handled more calmly? Character count: 6, 350 if you want. I can write a second one that is even longer, closer to 7,000 characters, with a more dramatic family twist that fits the top Reddit AITA story style. It would include subtle moral conflicts, extended dialogue, and deeper character tension. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.